Well, hello and welcome to this Dynamicweb webinar. Today I will talk about Razor with the title The Best a Man Can Get. And the idea behind this webinar is that it is a rerun from the tech conference we had at the beginning of March this year. I will reuse some stuff from that presentation, but I will also talk about some new cool Razor features that we've added to Dynamicweb in version 8.4.1. So allow me to start off with a few PowerPoint slides. Here we have a title slide. And here's a selfie of myself, of course, and my name and my contact information. And here's the agenda for today. First, I will talk a bit about what Razor is, but I will not go into much detail on that. Then I will show you a live demo of how you can use Razor in your Dynamicweb templates. And then we will finish this session off with some questions from you guys, hopefully. So let's go to the demo. This URL you see on the screen here, that's a demo site I made for the tech conference. And you're welcome to take a look at that. And you can find all the stuff on that site on GitHub. There's a link on the site itself. But today I will use a very clean Dynamicweb solution running 8.4.1.3 to show you some of the new stuff in Dynamicweb Razor. So I'll jump into my browser. Here I have Dynamicweb 8.4.1.3, where I can use all the new cool Razor features. And if you have Dynamicweb 8.4.1.0, then you can use all the stuff I will show you today. So first, I'll jump into to our GitHub repository, github.com/dynamicweb, where we have a number of repositories. Then we have one for Razor. Here we will share some templates, so you can see how you can use Dynamicweb Razor templates. And we also have a wiki, where we'll put some examples on how you can use Razor, and you're more than welcome to contribute with your own findings when you use Razor in Dynamicweb and stuff like that. Some of you may know Razor is a view engine. So it's a system that takes some data, the data model, and shows it, renders it in this case as a web page that we can show in a browser. And probably you all know how to create Dynamicweb templates using template tags and template loops and stuff like that. But what I will talk a bit about today is, I will not go into much detail on, but we've created a sort of translation guide that you can use when you start using Razor. So basically, on this wiki page on our GitHub, Razor Wiki, we show you the old way of rendering a template. So we have an old Dynamicweb HTML template tag, and then you can see down here how you should write that in Razor. For instance, a very simple template tag, as you note, the tag called tag name. You can get the value of that tag in a number of ways in Razor. If you just use get value, then you will just get the underlying value. But sometimes in Razor, you have to know that something is a string, and you have to tell Razor that it is a string in order to perform comparisons and stuff like that. So most of the times you will just use get value, and back in the day you would write this. Then in Razor you just write this, and then it will work exactly the same way. But sometimes you need to tell Razor that this is a string, or it's an integer, or it's a boolean, or it's a double, or it's a long, or it's a date, depending on what you want to do in Razor. And I will show you some examples of this. But basically, if you know how to create Dynamicweb HTML templates, you can take a look at this document, and then you will know how to create Dynamicweb Razor templates. So there's a long list of what you need: if statements and loops and if define and stuff like that. And maybe there's something missing on this in this document, and you are free to add anything you like, or provide more examples and add your own findings in here. So basically, this Razor is a Microsoft technology that we are using in Dynamicweb, and we're using something called the Razor engine to actually process our templates. So basically, the templates work exactly as they used to do. So the underlying data is the same if you use Dynamicweb HTML templates or if you use Dynamicweb Razor templates. It's just that the rendering engine on top of the template data that's different. And one of the cool features about Razor is that you can use Visual Studio or another integrated development environment to edit them, and then you can get some help from the Visual Studio, for instance, when you're editing your template. And I will show you how to do that. And basically, the stuff I will be using today, you can all read about on this Editing Razor Templates wiki page, where we have an example of how you can use Visual Studio, and you can use the free Visual Studio 2013 for web. I will be using that in a couple of minutes. And on this page, you can see what you must do to get started editing your Razor templates in Visual Studio. And I've done what it says on this page. So down here, I have a Visual Studio. Sorry about these notifications. I have a Visual Studio project that I can use to edit my Razor templates. And Visual Studio has to know what model is underlying the Razor template in order for it to provide you with the right intelligence, for instance, such that it knows that there is a get value function. Down here, I get basically, this is a page template. So here I get the name of the page, and I am using the get value Razor functions to get it. And you can see here that Visual Studio knows that this is a dynamic web in the Razor template get value that takes a string as a parameter, and the string is the name of the tag, and then it returns the value. In order to make this work, it's very important that you add this line to your template to basically tell Visual Studio that this is a dynamic web Razor template. So in your Razor template in this page, I'll show you how it looks. It just looks like this. Nothing fancy going on there. It's just a regular dynamic web template, but rather than using the old syntax as you know it, like this, and this confuses Visual Studio because it thinks it's this a Razor expression, but it's actually not. So instead of this, you should write this. That's all there is to it, basically. And then all the other stuff with defining content placeholders, that's just as it used to be. Down here, I've added an example of using a loop in Razor. So basically, I define a variable called languages, and then I call the getLoop method. And you can see here that Visual Studio actually knows that this method exists, getLoop, and then it expects a name, and that's the name of the loop. But it's the same loop name as you know from your HTML templates, but you just write it in a slightly different way. And then because Razor is basically C# code you can run in your template, so then I can do everything I can do in C#, I can do in Razor template. So down here I get the loops, that's the website languages, the master website and the localized websites, and I ask if the count of languages is greater than 1, then I render a language selector. And down here I have a for each, and here using my variable up here, or I could also just write the get loop down here. I have to just copy it to make sure that I get it right. I could also write it like this. That's probably the way you will usually use it. But because I want to make this check, I put it into a variable. And again, Visual Studio helps me so I can get my nice intelligence. And down here, when I have a loop variable, I have to make sure that I get the value called getValue on the loop variable object. So I can show you if here I have the language name. I'll just add square brackets so we can see it in the front end. Reload my page. Here you see it. So basically I'm creating this very, very simple language switcher. So yeah. So if I write it like this, for instance, get value and just name, then it will not work, or at least it will not work as expected, because now I'm getting the name from the global scope and not from the value from inside my loop. So you have to make sure that whenever you are inside a loop and you want to use the data from inside the loop, you should use your loop variable and call get value on that object. I'll just remove this again. Okay, so this is a very basic dynamic web template, but it's a Razor template, and basically it is a very easy translation from an HTML template to a Razor template. So now I will show you some of the cool new features that we've added in 8.4.1. And basically what we've done is that we've added some Razor lookalike functions that Dynamic Web can process. But in order to make it easier to edit Razor templates in Visual Studio, we've added some fake functions most of the times to help you use Razor. So the first one I will talk about is a one called template tags. One you have been asking for, and now you have it. So in Razor, you just write it like this. And since it's a function, you have to call it, so you have to make sure that you add the parentheses after the name, save on template, reload it. And then I see all the template tags, as you know it with using DW template tags in your HTML templates. So I get a list of all the keys I can use, and then I also get a list of the loops that are available in this template. So you can see here we have the title, that's the page title, and I should actually be using that up here. So if I change this to title, then of course I will get the title of my page up here. And just to show you, we have this DW date. Let's try using that in Razor. I'll just remove the template tag, but I'll show you it again in a bit. So if I write get value DW date like this, then I get this date. But actually I know that this is a date. So I can write it like this. So I tell Razor, get a date in this tag. Hopefully we should have the same thing. Yeah. But of course it's another date because it's current date. And by telling Razor that this is a date by using the get date, then I can do some stuff with it because it's a date. So I can get the seconds, for instance, like this. So now I only get the second. So basically, I have cool ways of formatting the template tags if I know something about them. And I also know that this title, I know it's a string, so I can write it like this, get the title, and then I can call the substring method, for instance, say I only want the first 3 characters. So I get it like this. So basically, a lot of the stuff that you would usually use some of the recently introduced template extension tags to render, you can now do directly using very simple pieces of C# code in your templates. And that's a very nice feature. Yeah. So I'll just show you this template tag. I'll show it down here, because down here we're inside a loop, and of course I could write template tags like this. Then I will get, and I should just move it outside my anchor like this. So now basically I call template tags inside my loop, and the stuff that template tags is reporting, I get the same output twice, and that's because I'm actually calling template tags in the global scope. But inside the loop, I want to ask this loop variable called language, what are your template tags? So you can write it like this. And again, you can see Visual Studio knows that this loop variable has a template tags method. I refresh, and now I get the template tags that are available on the first website language and on the second one. Another nice feature about this template tags is that you can actually filter the values. So if I know I'm looking for something that contains an A, I can do it like this. And then it will only report tags and loops that contains an A. Let's see if I can find yes here. I'm looking for something containing page. So here you see this template tags method. It reports all the tags that are available, and you can easily filter the list to get only the stuff that you are actually looking for. And one of the very useful cases for this is when we call the template tags on a page. And this, of course, is an item-based page. So most of the time I will use template tags like this. And then I get the information on the values on the item that I should use. And I see I have the item.name. That's actually my page name. So I should be using that one up here. So that's the template tags, a new cool addition to Dynamicweb 8.4.1, and I hope you will find that really useful. And on the Racer Week, you can see more examples of other ways to simulate DW template tags and get information on the values that are available in your templates. So template tags, that's one of the additions. Some other stuff we've done is that we have created Razor-like functions for include and for master pages. I'll just quickly show you how that works. So basically I have my page template here. If I add a new Razor template, I'll call it master for instance, then I switch back to I will put this into my master template like this. So now I have the same stuff, and then of course, as we usually do with master pages, I want to define the actual page content in my page template. So in my master, I will add a content placeholder like this and remove stuff. So basically, this is the same stuff as you would write in HTML templates like this. But in Razor templates, you can write it like this, and then Visual Studio will help you tell it, yeah, I know this, insert template content in master template. But actually, this is not a real Razor function. It's processed by the Dynamicweb template engine before Razor is running. So it works exactly as it works in the HTML templates, but we just added a mock function to our Razor base engine so that you can see and get help from Visual Studio that you have to write it like this. Going back to our page, I have to tell it that it uses a master template. I do this by inserting a master page file, and it takes a string that's a path to my master page. Do it like this, and then I remove the stuff that's in my master. So I have something like this. So now hopefully my page works exactly the same. I'll just try to refresh it, see what happens. It seems to work. I can then of course add back my template tags to see that it works. Yeah, and now we are using master template, as you probably already do most of the times. And we have some fake eraser functions that help you edit your templates in Visual Studio. We also have added include file. Again, it takes a string just like this, and it will work exactly as it does in HTML templates. And if I write it like this, I will of course get an error message telling me that it cannot find this include file. But that's basically the way to do it in Razor. I'll just remove that again. Yeah. Of course, I have I'll just show you this About Us page. There I have added a paragraph with an item publisher, and this item publisher just shows the items, the sub pages. This is an item-based page, and these are as well. So I have an item publisher just showing pages under the current page. Nothing fancy there. I hope you know the item publisher, and if you don't, you should definitely give it a try. One thing that's worth noting here is that in Dynamicweb 8.4.1, you can actually add modules to item-based paragraphs. So this paragraph with the name subpages, it has an item type and called paragraph, and that's the paragraph. That's an item type I have defined, and now you can add a module to that, just as you can with regular Dynamicweb paragraphs. So this is an item publisher, and of course there is a Razor-based list template, and I'll just show that to you in Visual Studio. So now I have it here. Again, I add this inherits stuff at the top to help Visual Studio understand this. And you can see in this template, Visual Studio is underlining with the red squiggly lines the translate. And that's because Razor functions and Razor expressions start with an @ sign and then something that makes sense to Razor. But this this translate tag doesn't make any sense. And the first thing we should do is that we should get rid of the comments around the translate. And then we should use a string like this. So basically, this looks like a Razor function called translate that takes a string, and that's the translation key, and another string that's a default value. But you will notice that the name translate that does not exist in the current content. But I'll get back to that just in a couple of minutes. I'll just add this. So now I have translated my template, and you can see I've removed the comments, but the translations still work. If I just put an edit item here. Oh, sorry, I should put it up there. You can see that well, this is the default value I get, but Dynamicweb understands this translate function. So basically, you can remove the comments around it and write it like this, because that's a nice Razor-like way to do it. One thing you have to notice is that this is handled by Dynamicweb long before the template engine runs. So, for instance, if I add a space in this string, that's completely valid Razor expression, because it's just a string enclosed in double quotes. If I do that, then I'll run into trouble. And that's basically because this should be handled by Dynamicweb before Razor gets the template for processing. But Dynamicweb translation keys currently do not allow spaces and other exotic characters in the translation key. So if you run into this and you hear this translate, it doesn't get handled by Dynamicweb, and then it's sent to the Razor engine, and then it complains that the name translate does not exist in the current context, because it doesn't, because it should be handled by Dynamicweb. So keep that in mind if you start doing stuff. This looks like a Razor function, but actually it's not a Razor function call. And we had some questions on the forum on why doesn't Visual Studio recognize this translate method. And the reason for that is that we are working on a new translation system. So as I mentioned, we added something that looks like functions but are not real Razor functions. For instance, the include file that can help you edit your templates. But we deliberately did not add one for translate because we're adding on a new translation system where we'll get a real translate function that you can use in your Razor templates. So that's one of the few places where you will still have Visual Studio complain that it doesn't know this, and it's because we haven't added fake Razor functions to help Visual Studio. I'll just go back here and check if there are. Yeah, I can see there's come some questions. I'll answer your questions at the end of the sessions. Okay, so that's include files and master page files, and a bit about translate. Some other cool stuff is that here I'll just make sure that here we have added the item publisher to a paragraph to show stuff in the front end. But on this tech conference website that we built, you will see examples of us actually embedding an item publisher directly in the template. And some of you probably have used it, where you can just write item dot. So here Visual Studio is actually not helping me, but doing the exact opposite. You can write like this and then add some parameters to render stuff. And we have added Razor versions of these, and I will not bore you with trying to remember how to do that. So I'll just jump into my cheat sheet here and then copy this piece of code. So basically I'm calling a function called render item list that renders an item list from settings defined on an anonymous object. So basically I say here I want to render an item list, and I want to render the item type page. The source type is self page because I want to use items from the current page. And I say I want all fields in my list. I want 10 items. I want to order by name, and I want to use this item publisher template. So now I'll go back and refresh. So here you see, now I have this added to my pages. And actually, if I show one of the other pages, you will see that it has the subpages stuff, but it doesn't have any subpages. I can just add a new subpage, call it Aarhus. And then you see I don't have any paragraphs on this page. But now this item publisher that's added directly in my template shows all the subpages. So that's a very useful feature when you start using items all around on your websites. And we're working on documenting the settings for this render item list, so you don't have to guess what values you can use. So let's jump back to the master, because you can see here there are a bunch of pages, but I don't have any navigation on my pages. So here I am back in my master page, and of course I can add a navigation. And this is just the way you're used to doing it with a div element or any other element you prefer with the class DW navigation. So then I will get some navigation. Nothing new for you there. But actually, some of you may know that we have added a tag for rendering a navigation, so you can render a navigation anywhere on your template. Here we have it. We have this navigation.render, where you can, and the stuff you add in here, that's the same settings you will use on your navigation element. And of course you can use it like this, but in Razor you should use it slightly differently. So rather than doing it like this, and of course this is probably the way you will do it most often and the way you should do it, because there's no need to involve Razor in this. But if you want to render some specific navigation somewhere, then you can call the render navigation method, and again you pass it in an anonymous object where you define the setting for the navigation. If I just do it like this, then I will get another navigation here at the bottom. I'll just move it to the top to make it easier to see, and then I will get rid of this one. So it works exactly the same. It renders the navigation, and you can do that basically anywhere. So I can do it in my, basically I could do it in my list template. That will probably not make much sense, but I can do it if I want to. Just get rid of that again. So that's a nice feature that you can do it like this. And of course you could say here I want the end level to be 1, and then it shows only the first level of pages. That's a nice little feature, and this is a real Razor function that's actually calling some new functions inside Dynamicweb. So we also have other functions that will help you. We have one called render page content that will render the content out of a page. So it's the same as this old guy, global page.content with an ID. But of course in Razor you can have it, you can compute some stuff. So you can render page content, then you can make some comments, say for instance like this. Then it will render, maybe ask you, let me try to grab a paragraph, see what happens. So we have this about us, and here we have a paragraph with ID 3. See if I render paragraph content with ID 1 plus 2, that's 3. So I can do it like this, and now I have this paragraph on. Oh, there it didn't work. But basically, I can make computations and render stuff. So that's a nice little addition if you need to include a paragraph or the content of a page in your template. One final thing I will show you is that you can also use snippets in a way that looks like Razor. And these are not real Razor snippets, but it's Dynamicweb snippets. So basically what you can do is you can write snippet start, and let's say I want to inject some styling into my master template. I can add a snippet start and a snippet end. And then I can add some styling inside in here. Just make the background of the body element. Let's make that orange. So here basically I'm defining the start of a snippet, the end of a snippet, And this is not a very cool way to do that. You have to have a start placeholder and an end placeholder, but it works. Let's see what happens if I refresh my page here. See that there's no I just have to clear my cache for some reason. That's yeah. I'll just try to see if I'm getting confused by this. So up here I have defined a snippet. So then in my master template I will render my snippet and of course pass it the same name. So now I have it. So basically what this does is that I add this snippet start and snippet end, and this is exactly the same as writing it like this. But you can see here that Visual Studio tries to be helpful, but it's not. So you can do it like this. So it's just a way to make it easier for you to edit your Razor templates in Visual Studio. And of course we will document all of these, and I know some of you have already started using these new Razor-like functions, and I hope that they will make it even easier for you to use Razor. So that's basically what I will tell you today, and maybe I will, of course I have to jump back to PowerPoint, because in summary, Razor templates, they are simple to use and edit, and they are really fast in runtime because they are basically compiled into binary form and execute very quickly. And it's easy to get started using Razor. If you know how to create dynamic web HTML templates, you can read that documentation on how to translate from HTML to Razor, and then you've started using Razor. And Razor is the future. We will improve on the way we use Razor and dynamic web and stuff like that. So there's no excuse for not getting started using Razor. And before we jump into the questions, I'll just remind you that, as always, you can check up on our upcoming webinars. This is a webinar we're having right now, and in a couple of weeks, Nikolai will kill 30 modules, and he'll tell you something about using items and about publishing XML and JSON from Dynamic Web. But these webinars that we planned right now are reruns from the tech conference. So that's it from me. So now we'll jump into the questions. I can see there's already a number of questions. Yeah, there's a question here if DW template tags include globals. Global tags, no, it does not, because basically you should never need to use global tags, but I know that we still have some global tags lying around, and we have this get global value that you can use to get some stuff. But I'm not sure if template tags includes globals. I don't think it does, but I'll check up on that. And then there's a question here in this filtering in the template tags, if you can filter on the item and value. So basically you want to write it like this. If I understand the question correctly, you want to write something like this, for instance, to get the stuff that matches item, then some system name and value. But you cannot do that. This filter value, and you can see it here, Visual Studio actually tells you print a table of the template tags containing the search string in the current template instance. So it's not a wildcard search, so you have to write it like this. But maybe we should improve on that. It would be nice to have a regular expression or something. Nice suggestion there. We'll look at that. Yeah, here's a question. How do you disable new standard page? Currently, you cannot do that, but in Dynamicweb 8.5, we will add an option for you to completely disable the use of, or disabling creating new regular or paragraphs and regular pages. And as you notice, I'm only using item-based pages and item-based paragraphs because I can do the same stuff with item-based pages and paragraphs as I can with regular pages and paragraphs, but I can also do a lot of other more cool stuff. So in 8.5 we will be able to get rid of new default standard paragraphs and pages. Here we have a question, is it possible to get all items in a solution having multiple websites of a certain type? And the answer to that is yes, but I will not go into that right now because this is a webinar on Razor, but we could discuss that, Kevin. It's a good question, but a bit out of context. There's a question here if it would be possible to get the actual type of the value in the template tags. So if I get the template, so this is a Boolean, and this is an integer and stuff like. So basically, if you can add another column with the real type of the value, and yes, we can do that. Or you can do that yourself, Jeppe Ager. That was a question from a guy sitting almost next to me. There's a question, can you render paragraph holder content from one page on another? I don't understand that question, but please get back to me, then we can discuss that. There's a question here if we saw this render navigation where we can define the settings. There's a question if we can do the same stuff with content placeholders. Here you know that you can do it like this, and then you can add some, if you want to force this to be a specific template. And if there is a function to do that, and no, there is not. So you cannot do it like this. This is a bad example because we're already using this. For instance, assume we had some a function called paragraphs that would define a content placeholder. Then if you can write it like this, and the reason, so the answer is no, we cannot do that. You still have to do it this way, and basically that's because we have to be able to pre-process the template to find the content placeholders in the templates, so that you can we can show you this list of paragraphs and stuff like that. So if we were to do it in a more Razor-like way, so that it would look like Razor, then we would have to make Dynamicweb understand Razor, but we don't want to go there. So for now, you have to do it like this, as in HTML templates. Yeah, and there's a guy here that just tells us that he loves using these new Razor lookalike functions, and you should look forward to getting the real translate function as well. Okay, that's a follow-up on that question. I did not understand if you can render a content placeholder from one page to another, and the quick answer is no, you cannot do that. But maybe we should discuss that in more details after this webinar. Here's a very good question. If we have any benchmark data in terms of performance compared to old tags, so basically, how does Razor templates perform compared with good old HTML templates? We don't have any formalized tests of this or any benchmarking data, but we know for a fact that some of our partners have experienced serious performance gains when changing to Razor templates. And of course, it depends on the complexity of the template. If you have a very simple paragraph template that's basically just renders the paragraph module and the paragraph text, then the difference in performance between the HTML template and the Razor template will not be that big. But if you have a very complex template with a lot of loops and a lot of if expressions and stuff like that, then you will definitely see a great improvement in performance when rendering the template using Razor. And of course, the way it works basically is that when a Razor template has been changed, then of course it has to be compiled the first time that it's needed, but then the compiled version is stored in memory, so subsequent renditions of that template will be very, very fast. But we don't have any formal benchmarking on it. There's a question why we shouldn't use global tags anymore. The reason for that is that most of the stuff you have in global tags are really something that you can get in other ways in Razor. For instance, we have a global tag for finding out if an extranet user signed in. But in Razor, we can get the same information from the page view object, and that's basically it's a page view object that's used when rendering a page. So we can ask this for a user, and there always is a user. So this object is always set. And if the user ID is if page view.user ID is greater than 0, then I know that user I write it like this. Otherwise, of course, I'll add some please sign in form. So here we basically don't we don't need a global tag, because global tags are most often used for just holding values that you need. For instance, if a user is logged in, or information on the current user, and dates and times and stuff like that. So if you look at the templates, Dynamicweb, and the global template tags, you'll see there's some information on the area, and you can get that exact same information by using pageview.area object. So if I want to get the name of the area like this, I just add a pre-element so it will stand out a bit. So then it looks like, oh sorry, it should be area name. So here you have information on the area. So that's basically all of this stuff, the name, the language and stuff like that. You can get that. You can get information on the device, you can get the extranet, that's the user, you have information on the page, and request, you can get that from the current HTTP context. So basically, you don't need global tags. But I know there are some cases that you need them anyway, and then you can use the get global value to get that information. So, but whenever you want to use a global tag in a Razor template, you should really consider if you really need that, or if you can get that information in another way. And most of the time, you will be able to get it from the page view object. It has information on the use as mentioned, and the page that's in play, and you can use Visual Studio to dig around to see what we have. We have information for you on the device. So the safe answer is that you should very rarely have the need for a global tag in a Razor template. And there's a question here if we can get content from specific content placeholder on a specific page using Razor, and the answer is no, we cannot do that using Razor, and that's basically because you cannot do that easily as it is right now in Dynamicweb. But maybe we should look into that. Oh, there's a question here. When in a Razor loop, how do you get the value from the tag outside a loop? So let's see where are we here. I'll just clean this up a bit. Here we are in the master template, and I know this should have an item.name. Let's just check that it makes sense. Yeah. So basically, we have the name of the item about us. It's the same one that we show down here. And now I should get rid of my template tags like this, and I'll probably get rid of that orange background as well. So now basically we're showing the title up here, and we have our language selector down. Yeah. So we have oh, I should move that. Sorry about that. Down here we have the loop over the website languages, and inside here we are saying languages.getValueName. And if I want to get something from outside the loop, I just write it like this. So here we have now I've added inside the A element again. So basically the way to get stuff from outside the loop is just to ask the global scope, and that is to not call getValue on the loop variable. And that's very nice because then it will be easier to, for instance, to compare stuff. So if the global item.name equals something on the language, for instance like this, then I can do something. So making comparisons like this, where this shouldn't be an @ sign. So if something inside a loop matches something from outside the loop, then do something. That's very easy to do in Razor. You just have to make sure that you call getString on the right object. And if you don't have an explicit object in front of the getString, then it will be from the global scope. Yeah, there's Dimitri says here that Razor rules, and I couldn't agree more. And he has experienced really big performance boosts after starting using Razor. Ooh, now you're coming up with the good questions. Nuno here is asking, how do we know what we can ask this area, the stuff used in the get value. That's a really good question, because you saw I was just writing it like this, but I had to write it like this, basically. Actually, this is this method get value. It's using a collection called values that we have on the area. So if you just print it out, then the default way of converting that values object to a string, and strings are what Razor renders, is that it's a hash table. So basically you can write some code that runs through this hash table, and it's something like, see if I can get that right. I think it's a dictionary entry. And then I can write it like this, e.key, e.value. I may get this right. Yeah, here you have it. So these are basically the keys you can use. And if you get them directly from the values collection, then of course you have to match the keys with basically the get value method on the area. It converts its argument to lowercase, and then it gets the value from this. So if I want, I can write it. This one is the same as this one. Ooh. Oh yeah. You see, Razor is very pedantic. If it doesn't understand what I'm saying, then it just fails. So of course I have to do it like this. So front page is the same as front page, and actually for improved reading, I can write it like this. It'll be the same. But the way to get that information is that you can add this. So this is a sort of a template tag like snippet or code example you can use to get stuff in that. And of course you can ask other collections as well, because the page view page has a collection as well, a collection of values that you can use. So here's a lot of stuff you can get on from your page, and much of this is stuff that you could get from global tags in HTML templates as well. And we should definitely add this to our Razor wiki. So maybe it's already in there, but these are nice code snippets to have, so you can know what you can write. Oh, and now there's a question if it's possible to get stuff from outside a loop, or from the outside of a loop to get a value from inside a loop. And yeah, the quick question again is, if you can do it in C#, then you can do it in Dynamicweb Razor. So let's just try it. I'll just say what the second language is. So I can say get loop. I'll just copy this to make sure that I get it right. And then I get the second one, index 1, and I call the get value on that one, and get the name. So here actually, from outside the loop in the global scope, I get the loop and get the second entry and get the value from that one. And of course this will fail if, so as you check if it makes sense. But yeah, you can do that if you need to do it. This question: what about security issues using SQL queries in Razor? Well, basically, you have the same security issues that you have whenever you add SQL queries. So I assume you're asking about SQL injection and stuff like that. And of course, you have to make sure to do it in the right way. We have some forum posts about that, questions and same stuff. But basically, if you perform SQL queries, and you can do that in Razor, then you have to make sure that any user input you use in your SQL expressions are sanitized and checked before actually running the queries against the database. But that has really hasn't anything to do with Razor. It's more a general security issue in C# and .NET. Yeah, it would be nice to have a tag keys method or something similar to template tags. And add that code example to Git. Yeah, and this is a Git repository, so I will put it on GitHub in a few minutes, and then of course you should feel free to play around with it and add any new examples you have. So I think that's there's a question here about Razor in MVC HTML encodes all incoming and outgoing info. It doesn't work quite the same way in Dynamicweb. So you don't have in MVC, you have to call the raw method to get the raw content of something. In Dynamicweb, you always get the raw content coming from the database or the underlying objects. So I think that's it for the questions, and yeah, it's been almost an hour now. So thanks for your time, and thank you for attending this webinar, and thank you for all these very good questions. Bye bye from me.